Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Well, it's time for part 5 of the continuing saga of this Ling Chinese diesel boat anchor that is the gift that just keeps giving. The more I get into this thing, the deeper it goes. It's just, well, that's the nature of old iron. So let's get in the shop and see what we can do with this thing today. In the last video, I talked about taking the oil pump out, making sure it wasn't all plugged up with goo, and then discovered that to remove it, the inner pulley there had to come out because it's interference for the oil pump hiding down in there. And in order to get that pulley out of there, the flywheel had to come off, and I thought, wonderful. So I dug through the hoard to see if I had a socket that would fit that, and of course I don't. But hanging in my stash of tools is my giant, it's not a crescent wrench, it's a Wisdom Tools adjustable wrench. For my friends outside the United States, an adjustable spanner. And appropriately enough, it's made in China. I bought that years ago when I was still living up north. I had an old Case 310 bulldozer for working my land up there. And I had to adjust the tracks on that frequently because it was worn out. And I bought that Chinese special right there specifically for adjusting those tracks. So let's get it on that giant flywheel nut there and see if we can break it loose. I took a hammer and punch off camera and I flattened out the fold over lock here, lock that nut in place. That's been soaking in Croil for a while. So let's see. And I got a vice grip clamp to the ring gear here, so it's resting on the engine mount there to hold it from spinning. And let's just see if I can. Oh, lucky me! Look at that. That just came right loose. Awesome. Yeah, I don't know what metric size nut this is, but yeah, the threads aren't even boogered up on that thing. But it's good size. There's three 14 mil bolts holding this thing to the back. There's a flange back there. We'll get these off of here. I took a Sharpie and I match marked the back of this flywheel to the mounting flange back there so it'll go back on the same way. I am sure I'm probably going to have to get a big puller to pull this off, but I'm just going to smack it with this no bounce and see if I get any give out of it. It is a keyed shaft, so it's probably tapered. So, yeah, I'll just keep working on this and see if I can knock her loose. Well, before I get too carried away here, I'm going to have to hoist this up a little bit, put a block of wood underneath behind this heavy box tubing here, and unbolt the box tubing and pull it off because it's notched to accommodate the ring gear here on the flywheel. I can't pull that off because it's going to hit. It's going to hit right there. So, yeah. And so far, no give with the pound method. So I'm thinking I have to get a big puller on there. Probably have to throw some heat on this boss right here. See if we can get her to pop loose. And I'm also going to have to suspend, lift lifting strap to it to hold it, because I'm sure that flywheel is probably good for about 100 pounds. I ended up having to resort to more forceful measures, but I was successful. The air impact and the puller popped that thing loose, and to my surprise, that belt pulley shiv there came with it. So double lucky there. And it's a good thing because this oil line right here is broken. I didn't know that until I was messing around here up close. Hopefully I'll be able to find something out on that old burned up Yanmar diesel that will work. We'll see. Voila! Success! The crankshaft seal looks brand new. And there is no evidence of leaking anywhere. So that's a good seal. This thing's got a little onboard generator, which I am not going to try and revive. I just want to see if this thing will run. I am going to have to pull this banjo fitting right there, because that's the one that's got this broken oil line here. That is unfortunate. But I'm not getting sidetracked with that right now. The thing I'm after is this guy right here. Well, I am glad I pulled this apart. I mean, everything is free and tight. No grinding or crunching. It's pretty filthy. And there is some rust inside this. So this is going to go into the parts washer and get a thorough cleaning, and then right back into the engine it goes. I'm still looking for oil ports. Thought that might be one, but I think that's a locating pin like this one over here. Sorry about the crappy camera work. So what we've got on the engine, we've got two holes here and here that are part of the lubricating passages. And you guys that are actual mechanics will know more than me, but it looks like this pump is drawing oil right through this bearing and then sending it on its merry way throughout the rest of the engine. So, because there's nothing external on the housing of that oil pump to connect the delivery line to. It's all internal. So, yeah, I'm glad I pulled it apart. I'll do some cleaning off camera. Well, I'm really glad this gasket was unscathed, because I think that's probably a shim, part of the shim and lash and all of that for the oil pump. I misspoke earlier. I said that was rust in there. It's actually Gliptol. That aids in oil flow from the guys I know that use it quite a bit in engine rebuilds. But this all cleaned up really good. So I'm going to lightly oil it up and put it right back on the engine. Well, I'm out here in the shed looking over the old burned up Yanmar. I'm going to see, here's the existing oil line off the Chinese diesel that's broken. I may have a contender right here. I'm going to grab a wrench and fish that out of there and see if I can adapt this to the Ling diesel. And hopefully that'll solve that broken oil line problem. If not, then I'm going to have to attempt a repair there. We'll see what happens. Well, repair it is. Out there on the Yanmar, the fitting on the opposite end of that oil line is completely different, much larger size. It's kind of a T-fitting with another oil line coming off the back side of it. So what I'm going to do, I think I've got enough material, to kind of bend and flex this a little bit. I'm going to heat this and melt the solder and pull, pull the broken piece out, dress this end up, slide it in, and resolder it. That's the goal anyway. All right, I got this all cleaned and degreased. I'm getting ready to get some flux on there and get the torch out. Got some silver solder there. And I'm going to try and gingerly solder this up. Since the pipe was not completely broken off the fitting, I'm just going to try and just solder it back up and seal the crack. Hopefully the solder won't migrate into the tubing and plug it. Well, we'll just go for broke here and see if it'll work. I should really invest in a map torch. It's much more suitable for this kind of thing than this little cheesy benzomatic propane torch. But this will probably work. The map burns a lot hotter. So the goal is to just heat this joint up and then dab solder on it without the flame on it, because the flame might just blow the solder away. It's been a long time since I've done any real soldering. Not quite hot enough yet. Back before my shipyard days, I worked for a roofing company that had an architectural sheet metal division. And I soldered miles and miles and miles of architectural sheet metal, fascia, gutters, all that kind of stuff. And I've been out of it so long, I kind of lost the skill. There we go. Solder always follows the heat. Yeah, this thing's definitely not going to heat that hot enough. Well, if this doesn't work, might give me an excuse to get a map torch. Well, I checked with my pal Arnie next door on the off chance that he might have a map torch, and he says, nope, I just got a cheesy benzomatic propane torch like you got. Well, I really don't want to go buy one after pricing them online and, in our local stores in Sierra Vista. That's almost a 30-mile round trip for me. So gas plus the price of the torch. And then I got to thinking, what about the gas axe? I mean, I got a small brazing tip that goes on there. I got the big rosebud in it right now. Definitely don't want to use that. And I got a couple of 3-foot sticks of bronze brazing rod. Maybe I'll give that a shot. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, if I screw it up, I'm not out anything other than a little gas and brazing rod. And this engine's pretty much worthless as it is now, so what the heck? Let's give it a shot. And looking at this closer, I don't believe that's solder in that joint anyway. That looks like bronze brazing material. So that gives me an excuse, I guess. Well, here's my setup. I made a little fixture here. I notched the end of this tubing because I didn't want to clamp the banjo fitting directly in the jaws and deform them. And then, they'd never seal properly. And then, of course, this is copper. The magnet won't work on it, but it'll work on these little needle nose vice grips, which are holding this. I'm trying to keep those banjo fittings in line. This is going to be, the overall length of the tube's about 3/8 of an inch shorter, because as I was fooling with this, I actually broke it off. So I just drilled that out, and now I've got this set in here. Copper melts at a little over 1900 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've got to get this hot enough to melt brazing, but I don't want to melt the copper. And I'll probably turn it into a Gorilla Glob mess. So let's just see what happens. A Gorilla Glob with the best of them. No, he may have gotten it. Well, I didn't booger that up too bad. It looks pretty good all the way around. Sorry about that crappy camera work. I'm gonna have to, once this cools off, I'll pull it out of there. Hopefully I didn't fill the banjo fitting with brazing. I was just gingerly dabbing and then pulling heat away right away so it wouldn't flow too far down into the joint, but we'll just find out here in a minute. Well, that cleaned up really good. I shot some compressed air through it, and by golly, I didn't plug this up. I've got good airflow all the way through. So I am going to go put it back on the engine block. I'm not going to permanently install it until I get the head back on this engine, because I got to do some fine-tuned tweaking to get that all to fit back up, which means the flywheel is not going to go on till the head's back on, because I want to make sure that that line is not going to give me problems. So I still have the fuel injection pump to deal with. That's on the opposite side of the engine. And I got to clean up the head, touch up the valves, and then I got to check out the injector on the head and see if that's any good. Yeah, I basically got in over my head on this thing. But hey, what do? It's old iron. You just power through. So right before I put that on, just hand tight, I took some brake clean and shot it through the hole there, and I got a good stream out the back right here. And so that means the passage is clear inside the block. So that's another good sign. I'm just got my fingers crossed on this thing. Hate to do all this work and still wind up hauling it to the scrapyard, but hey, it's the risk you run. Well, I'm going to pull this fuel filter assembly apart and see what we got. That should tell me the whole story, whether or not I got to tear into the fuel injection pump here. So I got my 21 mil wrench and we'll just see what we got here. I'm probably gonna gag, but I think I've finally desensitized myself from the stink of this engine, because I got most of the bad fluid out of it. Just whatever remains in this filter and the fuel lines is what I got to deal with. So far, this is not exactly a good sign. This bolt holding the filter assembly together, well, it came loose. Just caught the whiff. But what's down in there does not look good. Come on. Well, we got fluid. Let's see what the filter looks like. Well, the fluid, although discolored, is clean. And the filter is pretty nasty. But I think that's actually old diesel fuel. It doesn't stink like what came out of the crankcase. The inside of the fuel filter, well, you can't see. Let me grab a light. Well, I don't know if you can see in there or not, but there is gunk. So yeah, once again, I'm going to err on the side of caution and start pulling this injection pump apart. I think I can get away with just pulling the lines loose and pulling the face off of it and having a look before I start taking this cover off and really getting into it. But that's going to be for the next video. This one's getting kind of long, and you guys let me know in the comments if you're getting kind of sick of me showing all the details of working on this thing, and if you just want the next video of me cutting to the chase and trying to start it up, because I don't want to waste your time. I mean, this is me playing. I mean, I'm retired. I can work on this stuff whenever I want, you know, for a long period of time. But if you're getting sick of watching me just tear this thing apart and clean, let me know in the comments, and we'll just cut to the chase. As usual, I'm well behind schedule. The Farmall H should be sitting in here, and I should be wrenching on that now instead of this wonton fooey boat anchor. But hey, it's old iron, you know. I'm just playing with old iron. But on a serious note, or semi-serious, for any of you young people watching, my hope is that this will kind of inspire you to, you know, dig into that old piece of junk and tinker with it. Don't be timid or shy. Just dive in, because in the grand scheme of things, if it doesn't work out, nothing lost. But you've gained valuable experience in playing with this old iron. And if you happen to have a success, well, then you got an old relic to take to the shows and stuff like that. And if you're not sure where to begin or how to do things, you probably got an old uncle or a grandpa or somebody around that's been around this old iron a lot that can mentor you a little bit. Go online and check out, I almost said go in your phone book. That dates me. But go online and check, you know, your local tractor and engine clubs. There's always an old timer or two there that would be willing to give you a little guidance. Because this is really, and it is rewarding, you know, getting something like this resurrected instead of the scrapyard. And, you know, sitting there all day playing with the phone or whatever, it's not healthy. In the grand scheme of things, you don't get much out of it. But getting out in the shop, and you don't need much, just some basic tools. Go to a couple garage sales, you can get some cheap wrenches and, you know, old tools and things like that. You don't need much to wrench on these old engines. You go down to Harbor Freight and get a basic kit. Not expensive, and, you know, maybe put the word out to Grandpa for your birthday or Christmas or something like that. You know, hey, about a $39.95 special from Harbor Freight. And start diving into these old engines. You can do it. I am not a mechanic. Well, I'm a sheet metal mechanic. Got the certificates for that. But I am not any kind of an automotive mechanic at all. I'm just playing with this stuff. And it's basic skills that I learned from my dad, and when I was a kid growing up, and then other people. And so I am no expert when it comes to wrenching on old engines. I make a lot of mistakes, but you're not going to hurt anything if you make a mistake. You wind up having to haul it to the scrap yard, well, you get some scrap money. Apply it to the next old engine or old tractor or whatever. But yeah. So welcome new subscribers. I'm glad you're here. And feel free to banter with us in the comments. We have a good time there. Existing subscribers, as always. Thanks for watching. So I'm getting ready to cut it off here. The next video will probably be taking a break from this. I'm about ready, and I'm sure you are too. If I can get the road trip treasure ready in time, I'll be heading up to Tucson, East Tucson. Every year we have a little show at the Culver's restaurant there in the east side of town. We set up in the parking lot and run the engines and display the tractors. So hopefully if I can get it together this week, the next video will be about that. So with that, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you soon on the next one. Bye for now.